Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business. I am so excited to get into this conversation today, excuse me, because it relates back to women like me so much and voices. So, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today, and then we're going to dive into what's going to be a very interesting conversation. So, today I'm joined by Kate Markland. Now, she is an author, a founder, and an advocate for children's voices from the UK. Kate is the founder of StoryQuest, a powerful storytelling methodology created from one of the hardest chapters of her life. After a court order gave her 1 week on FaceTime with her son, Kate chose not to collapse inside that tiny window of time. Instead, she asked her son one simple question: what do you want to say? Ooh, I got shivers. So today we're talking about storytelling, self-leadership, children's voices, and an invitation to everyone to reclaim their voice that we were taught to keep quiet. Kate, I am just so honored that you are willing to be here and talk about your story. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let's begin with the hard stuff. 1 hour a week. My goodness, can you take us back to that season of life and what was happening for you as a mother?
We're still in it. It's been 1 hour a week for over 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years. Yeah. So,
Wow. Wow.
so yeah.
That's
Mm.
That's incredible. That's I'm sure every mother right now, and even if they're not a mother, your heart just pulls. I have 3 children myself, and sometimes I'd like just 1 hour, but not for years and years at a time, and certainly not court ordered. That is yeah, not so great. So you were given such a small window of time with your son that I just love that you did this because you didn't come out as a victim. You didn't create this great big drama around everything that's happening. You asked him, what do you want to say? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we end up in this situation, and it's almost the grief was. I can't describe what the pain and the grief was and how dark it was. Um, and I just knew on our very first call when we were in this situation that I was shell shocked, and I knew he would be. He'd just turned 10 at the time.
Oh,
And that we could speak for an hour, but we were so battered that it seemed very safe and reassuring to reconnect to our shared love of stories. He'd always really loved oral storytelling. So even once he could read, because I often get asked, can he read? Can he write? Yeah, he can read, he can write. But he'd still loved audiobooks in the car or a bedtime still being read to him. We'd read something that he might not choose to read himself, and then he'd read his own book. So I just went into his room and picked up a very illustrated Michael Morpurgo book called The Puffin Keeper. And we just started reading it across FaceTime. And yeah, I was sat at the kitchen table and he was on the other side of my iPad. And we looked at the pictures and read a bit. And that went on for, I don't know, it's probably about 4 weeks. It's not a very long book. And then we got some whiteboards and did like noughts and crosses and pen and paper games. And then I picked up an illustrated copy of Treasure Island. And the little boy in Treasure Island, the protagonist, is called Jim. And Grandad, my father's called Jim. So by the time we'd finished reading Treasure Island, we're a bit sick of reading about Jim's heroics. So I just said to Gabriel on a complete whim, should we make up a story where you're the hero? And it was instant yes. And he starts telling me, I want to defeat a sea monster. And he starts telling me, there's quite a lot of clarity he had about the story he wanted to tell. Now, throughout all this time, I write to him. I write to him every week. And so I just start scribbling it down, what he's saying. I used to be a physio. Physios don't write paragraphs. You just take notes of what somebody's saying to you. So I'm just capturing it on a piece of paper on the kitchen table, just like I would as a physio, just capturing the bullet points, the keywords. And then I think, well, I'm going to type this up for you and expand it. And then I'll put it in the post to you. And that'll be a nice thing that we can just build up over the weeks, a bit like Dickens. We can have installments of our own stories. So do that with the first one, type it up, sort of extend it a bit. And my main metaphor is, I have no idea what we're going to do, but just don't give up. I'm just saying, don't give up. And I read it back to him on the following Friday night. He adds his edits. At this point, I'd done some drawings, and my friend saw my drawings and said, Kate, you can do better than that. And I was like, well, maybe I can, but I've got improving my artwork down for a retirement hobby, and I'm not there yet. We had a good go with AI art. So Gabriel edits the story, but also chooses the pictures that we've created on AI art that he would like to illustrate his story, because that had always been one of his gripes in terms of, just because I get a better reader doesn't mean I don't want pictures in my books. So I was like, we're making our own story, you can have as many pictures as you want. So this went on for about 8 weeks, and after about 8 weeks we had 6 short stories, and it was a mess on my desktop, absolute mess, and I couldn't really see anything other than my desktop other than all these image files and Word documents. So I just merged it all into one document, and I flipped it was my laptop, so I flipped the screen around, the iPad screen around, to show him, and instantly he saw a book. Mum, it's a book. In my head I'm like, yeah, right, Gabriel, seriously. And who on earth do you think I am? You don't know my headmistress from primary school. Mrs. Robinson went to town on my writing with a red pen. Who on earth do you think we are to publish a book? But he kept going on, Mum, it's a book, it's a book, it's a book. So then, okay, I'm thinking, right, we get 2 published, one for you, one for, printed. I'll just go to the local printers and get 2 printed, one for you, one for Granny and Grandad. Mum, it's a book. And because we were in such a diabolical situation, it was like I couldn't say no without having explored further. So that then led me to send this Word document to somebody that I knew in children's education here in the UK, and also a child psych that I just knew from LinkedIn in the US, because I knew they both were passionate about children's voices and children's creativity. Both of them from either side of the Atlantic came back to me with the same thing. Get this out now, because there's nothing where it's children's imagination inspiring other children. So we then go through the process of, I know somebody that self-publishes books. I contact him and ask him, hey, we've got this Word document. Do you think we can do anything with it?
That's just so beautiful. And so tell us where it's gone from there, because if when I was doing my research, if I'm correct, you have helped 465 children
Yeah.
tell stories?
So yeah, we publish our first book, and again, I'm completely hung up about my own spelling and grammar, but Kevin, that helps self-publish, looks after my nerves, and we
Yeah.
get it out. And we get it out in time for one of the biggest literature festivals here in the UK, where Helen Fielding, who wrote Bridget Jones, is presenting. And there are blessings within this. And I get to meet her. And she has the same message, that as a 20-year-old, she thought what she'd done well, because of course I'm a Bridget Jones generation, was right for other 20-year-olds. And as a 50-year-old, she'd just released a book that was for other 50-year-olds. She wasn't writing as a 50-year-old for children, So she really believed in this
Right.
writing for your own generation. I thought, well, I'm Gabriel's scribe, but it's his imagination. So she was essentially saying exactly the same as what the other 2 people I'd asked were. I was like, okay, well, something in this, isn't there? So then I'm invited to speak about it, about the book, not the story behind our story, but about the book. And I start talking about it. And then what I get asked, which I couldn't believe, was, what was your process? What do you mean? What's my process? I'm getting asked this by retired social workers, teachers,
Yes.
grandparents. What's your process? What? I just cannot comprehend. Well, what's your process for extracting your son's story? How did you get his imagination out? I honestly couldn't comprehend the question.
Yes.
But then about the 5th time I've been asked, I was like, because I still wasn't revealing the story behind our story. Everybody assumed we were sat at the kitchen table together, not that we were the other side of a screen.
Yes.
And I thought, well, if there is a process, it's what I've done for 20 odd years as a physiotherapist, in that you ask an open question. It's exactly what you're doing with me now. Ask an open question, then clarify the detail, have a verbal handshake to check that you've understood, edit where appropriate, and so on. Oh, okay. So we get an opportunity to try this out in some schools. And yeah, nearly 500 children later, I've asked 9 to 11-year-olds, would you like to be a hero of your own story? Every single one of them says yes. And just as
Oh,
Ellen Fielding perhaps suggested, was as soon as they've seen Gabriel's book and realised, hang on, another 10-year-old did this. Well, if I'm 9, 10, and 11 and he can do it, I can do it too.
wow.
And they just come to life. And,
Wow. I love that. Would you like to be the hero of your own story?
and
That
no
is what a great question.
There are
Wow.
no rules. And they simply, I mean, that's what I say to them. We've got no rules today. And you cannot be wrong. You quite simply cannot be wrong. If it's your story, you
Yes.
can't be wrong. There's
No.
no, you can't fail at this.
Wow.
So
Wow.
all the barriers are removed.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, when you began this, starting to write down his words, and why was it? If I understand correctly, you were writing them down as he was speaking them, and so you weren't really making many changes. Is that correct?
So what I was doing was, yeah, he was really clear. The first one, he was really clear. I want to defeat a sea monster. And he'd had this, his favorite cuddly toy being a platypus. So we'd charged with can-do spirit. You know, platypus could solve anything. So Platty was going to become like Robin to his Batman. Platty was the obvious sidekick. And so he was really clear on quite a few things. So I'm just literally scribbling it down like I would as a physio,
Yeah.
bullets, 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 bullets. And I don't correct any of that. I type it up and then I realise we've got gaps. So again,
Right.
just like I would do as a physio, I've got gaps. So you've told me this amount of your story, but actually I don't know what your sea monster's called.
Ah,
So we then, when it comes to the following Friday and I'm reading it back to him, I've also got points. I'm not correcting what he said at all. I have added expansion to it. I've added more detail to it where felt appropriate, and he's then adding his edits back. So one part was, he walked past an owl, and then when I'm reading it back to him, he's like, hang on, mum, you don't just walk past an owl. An owl's going to give me a clue or a riddle or something to, so, okay, well, what might that riddle or clue be? So yeah, then he added his edits, but also there were points when I typed it up in the week where, again, like I would as a physio, and you're telling me about your back pain. Hang on a minute. I'm not actually sure what happens when, or I don't know what your sea monster's called. I don't know what colour it is or what it looks like. Because then when I'm trying to create the images in AI art, I'm realizing, hang on a minute, you've got in your mind exactly what this sea monster looks like.
yeah.
I don't know what. It's blue. It's got two heads. Oh, of course.
Oh, oh, I just love
So
that. I, what a great experience for the both of you. And then it becomes number one on Amazon.
yeah.
Wow. So how did that process, well, I say the word process, I should be careful with you after that, after your, the process, but how did that process happen, especially knowing that it came from such a tender and beautiful place? Like
Oh,
so he understood that you were going to, this was something
yeah.
you were going to
Yeah.
put out
He
into
was
the world and
it was honestly, I feel like I've had the best business manager I can, because his belief in me has been incredible. You know, just mum, it's a book, and it's me that's got the hang-ups. He's not got the hang
yes,
up about this is a book, it's me. He's just like, get on with it, mum, make it to a book.
yeah,
Okay, we'll
yeah,
figure it out. And like I say, Kevin, who helped self-publish it, he just, how that bit happened, he just took it off my hands and held my nerves. I was so nervous.
yes, yeah,
Um, and as soon as then we'd got that one out, um, Gabriel was like, Mum, just use all your skills. Like, obviously.
wow,
You say I'd run my own physiotherapy clinics, I'd been an athlete in the past, so use all your skills meant I just kind of had to think about, well, put everything I know how to do. I don't know anything about this world of
yes.
literature and how to promote a book, but I thought, well, but you know how to run a physio clinic and you know how to row a boat, and so you've just put everything back in the boat metaphorically, point and go.
Yeah.
Stop.
That's exactly what you do. Absolutely.
And I think
Wow.
that has been really, really valuable, that rowing as a reference point, because it has been absolutely brutally painful.
Mm,
Um, but when I used to row, there's always going to be a finish line. And you might not, it might seem like it's forever away, especially in the endurance events, but
yeah.
eventually you will cross it and you always have your back to it and you don't stop however much it hurts. You keep going. Now, sometimes obviously you're pushing faster and harder. Sometimes you've got to breathe a bit.
Yeah.
But never did I think this endurance event would go on this long. Never. ever, ever. But yeah, Gabriel saying to me, "Mum, it's a book, and then use all your skills," sort of gave me a direction. And
Yeah.
then when we came to the second book, he's much, much more confident. So literally, we'd got book one out in the October. By the November, Mum, he's got this idea for the second book, and he's now seeing, instead of a series of short stories, he's seeing one complete book about, can we resurrect a dodo skeleton? I have no idea. And he's really clear. Well, we're going to go visit all these endangered animals around the world. And so all I keep thinking is, well, I need a plot, because I'm not
Wow.
an author. So we'll use the plot of Around the World in 80 Days, because that gets us around the world.
Yes.
And I'm like, hang on a second, hang on. So, but his belief in, again, his belief in what was possible, and his belief in that I would be able to write,
Yes.
made me act, made me do it,
Yeah.
because I would never, ever have dreamt of writing a book otherwise.
Yeah.
Never,
Well,
never.
and as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, what a great children's book to be written by another child.
Yeah, yeah.
As adults, we can imagine and that kind of thing, but we don't have their imagination.
No, no, and you're
Yeah.
quite right, because so for the second book, when he's quite clear once the whole book, I'm like, hang on a minute, we need to plan this out. Hang on, I can't do this. It's not like little short stories that we can just do one Friday night, read it back the next Friday night. This needs a plan. So I'm making this story arc with him and making sure I understand what he's got in his head. And we've got to start off by going to visit the sea otters in Alaska. So I post him I got it off the internet, a sheet of all different modes of transport, thinking, how are we actually getting to Alaska? Well, Mum, we don't need that sheet. We're going by portal. Oh, of course. Okay, but you don't understand. I've never read fantasy fiction. I don't know how a portal works. I don't know what a portal
Yes.
looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it.
And so I think there's a point where, when you're this constrained, everything has to be can do. And I can't say no to simple requests.
No,
If he
of
believes
course
I can
not.
write a book, we can write a book.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, you say the blank page is never a writing problem.
Mm.
It's a self-leadership problem. So what do you mean by that?
So what I see, and again, it comes back to what I recall from school, but what I also saw with the 465 children that we asked if they wanted to be the hero of their own story, is when you completely remove the blank page for them and you show them how to do exactly the same in pairs. So one of you's a storyteller and the other one's the scribe. And as a scribe, you don't need to write paragraphs. You're just going to make sure you capture your storyteller friend's ideas, and you can again ask for the extra details, like how big's the dragon or what colour's the cat's eyes. You ask for the details that the storyteller has in their head but hasn't actually realised, they haven't articulated. So as a scribe, you're capturing it and pulling out the tell me more details. So the storyteller, and they get it because they've learnt about this when they've studied the Egyptians, the storyteller scribe or whatever. They get it.
Yeah.
So the storyteller only actually has one executive function at a time. And their executive function is only to tell their own hero story, which of course they are the leader of. And their
Wow.
friend is capturing it. There's
Yes.
no blank page, because as soon as you give a child a blank page in a classroom, and I hadn't realised this, but 20 odd years of physio, I think 5,000 patients or something like that came through my clinic doors. I can think of one person that came in with their story written down. Everybody comes in to tell their story orally. Everybody
Yes.
orates their story.
Yes.
And so I hadn't realised how normal oral storytelling was to my world, and how unusual it sort of is in the classroom, which seems completely
Yeah.
back to front.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the children just can't be wrong, because as soon as you give them a blank sheet of paper, they've got more opportunity to be wrong than right. They forgot to put the date on the page. They're using a blue pen instead of a black pen or whatever. Their
Yeah.
handwriting's wrong. It should be capitals. They didn't underline. There was no full stop. They got the content wrong. The context wrong. They've got every opportunity to be wrong. So that blank page brings so much fear of not being good enough. Not
Wow.
Whereas when that's completely removed and they can tell their own mad, wild, unhinged heroics,
Yeah.
the
So
form.
can you tell me how did you get into the school? What happened to get you into those classrooms?
So the lady here in the UK that I shared the Word document with was my mum's very old school friend. And
Oh,
she had been a former head teacher and school inspector in the north of England, and her big passion had been in creative writing for children. So she still had contacts in the schools in her city, which that got the ball rolling. Was yeah, she called in
yeah,
because and that first workshop we couldn't believe we asked and we hadn't. What was really interesting again was we went into the classrooms with no educational bias. So the very first school we went to was 60 children, inner city, very deprived, very multicultural, English as a second language for lots of children, all sorts of issues. We didn't ask what any of them, the complications were that they were dealing with. And it was only in the break time when the teacher's looking at us saying, that little boy that stood up and told his story about an otter, he's got severe autism. He never speaks in class. But we didn't know that because we were going in with zero educational bias.
yes,
And you're also kind of expecting that the children might mock each other's stories, but they weren't. They were absolutely celebrating and helping each other up level their stories. It was the exact opposite. And then you realize just how much bias goes on in the classroom too, when we give the children freedom in terms of if you want to write your story up as a cartoon, it's your story, however you want
yes,
it. Then you
yeah,
realize children that might find it difficult. So when it does then come to writing it up, they've got it all out. And then they're usually chomping at the bit to then write it up. They want to write it up because they're so proud of it. You realize that actually some children are beautiful, draw absolutely stunning drawings, but will find it really difficult to write, half a page of text.
yeah.
The classroom sets them up for failure when they've got to,
Mm,
form with
yes.
whatever is required. So they're just sort of beaten before they've had a chance to shine.
Wow. It's I it's a tough situation that's happened to you and your son, of course, but look at the beauty that's come out of it.
And
And oh, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. I think one of the things that really um, was joyful to see was Gabriel made a little video over FaceTime. We just recorded it a minute long for him saying hello to the children in the classroom. So I would show it to the children in the classrooms. Then they
Oh,
would want to make videos back to him, not having any idea of our situation. So they were creating this connection with each other through their own stories.
oh my
And then
goodness. Oh,
we started to realize we were just becoming the facilitators
yes.
because the
Yeah.
children could create and the morality in the children's stories you start to realize they've then they can solve huge problems. They solve, all the pets are stolen by aliens, and the teachers are looking at me thinking, well, how are we going to get the pets back? I don't know. They know. Of course they've got it all worked out. They've got it
Yeah.
all figured out.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
I think we completely underestimate the power that children have and their potential from what I've seen. And when they're given permission to take charge, to lead themselves, they can solve enormous problems and they create this beautiful connection with
Yeah.
one another.
Wow. Wow. It's and I think our school system tends to stifle creativity. So this is another opportunity for them uh, to get. I mean, they're really getting their creativity out.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was really, again, gave me a lot of confidence at that same literature festival where I met Helen Fielding. There was a presentation from some editors, and they showed like Tolkien's work and Jane Austen's work, and they showed how Tolkien was drawing as he was writing. His drafts all had illustrations of the mountains and the scenes that he was imagining. So he's doodling.
Yeah.
You've got permission to doodle whilst you're expressing yourself. And
Yeah.
in spelling and grammar was absolutely appalling. She was completely dependent on her publisher's editor for correcting her spelling and grammar. And we're not taught that it's actually a collaborative approach being an author. Um, and that actually your ability to create a great story or a wonderful world is far more important than your ability to spell and do grammar, because that can be corrected by somebody whose strength is editorial. There's two different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Well, you also say the corrected child becomes the woman who quietly abandons parts of herself. Now, I think that's just so powerful. So, how have you seen that show up in women and children?
Well, in children, we see it where they start to lose, and it's typically comes in towards the end of junior school, but certainly in secondary school, where they lose their confidence just to ask questions or share their opinions, and they start drawing into themselves, and they get stuck behind the computer games or whatever, and they're not the same child that, well, obviously they're not the same child because they're growing up, but they're not so willing or confident in their ideas or their opinions, and they become a lot more aware of the need to conform with what's expected of them.
Yeah, yeah,
But what you see with um, again, if I go back to what I saw in the clinic, unheard, been the function,
unheard. Yeah,
abandoned. You know, their needs have been completely abandoned,
yes,
constantly serving other people,
yeah, yeah,
which is fine to a point, but not
yeah,
when it becomes at the cost of you. When you become the scapegoat, you become almost like the collateral to everybody else's success. You become the collateral damage to everybody's success. You're
yeah,
facilitating everything for everybody else, but what about you?
yes,
And it's not about being uh I don't think it's even about particularly being feminist. It's just about being heard and seen and
yeah,
recognized, and having the opportunity, and it doesn't take that much time, but having that hour a week where you go back to, I don't know, being the artist, go back to your whatever it is that you loved, go back to, whatever it is that's core to you. So you've got that
yes,
window that's
yeah.
all yours.
Why do you believe storytelling is connected to self-leadership?
Because when I was a little girl in the same city called Bradford in the north of England, it's where my mum's from, and you have a very distinctive Yorkshire accent from that area. My grandfather had this particular accent, and he would recite monologues to me again and again and again. I don't think he once read me a book. Again, perfectly able to, wrote his own stories, but he would recite
Yeah,
awful storytelling.
yeah,
And the one that he would particularly recite to me repeatedly, and I would ask for repeatedly, would be Kipling's If. And I had no idea when I was a little girl, and I would hear it again and again and again, that story, that poem, that monologue was going to be vital for me getting through these last few years.
mm,
Literally every single morning in the darkest times, I would just hear even the first verse, and that would get me out of bed. That would make me take a first walk in the morning, take the first step, make sure I'd looked after myself.
yeah,
And without if, I, I can't even think, because it gave me the faith, or it gave me the reference point, it gave me the model that actually you can get through hell and find something on the other side, and people can doubt you and say awful things about you, but as long as you hold your own truth and your own integrity, you will find a way through.
yes,
So
yeah,
storytelling, both existing stories like if or poems, give us a model or a reference point we can refer to, but then our own stories allow us to shape, and again with children, allow us to shape and test our philosophies. You can't be wrong. If you don't
mhm.
like it, what you can do is stick it in the shredder. Oh well, but you can't
Yes.
be wrong. So you
I
get to
lo-
test, the kids get to test out, right? Well, if they're facing a particular problem, they get to test out solutions. They get to
yeah,
test out what success might look like on the other side. They get to explore what's actually going to make you take action, what's actually going to make you do something. Because it's those philosophies that they develop through storytelling that are going to shape the decisions they make when they're grown up, and the actions they take, and then for the results they get. So it's vital to have that opportunity to play with storytelling, both as the consumer of and the creator of,
yeah,
to
yeah. For women listening who feels that she doesn't have the perfect conditions to build something meaningful, what would you say to her?
you just start. You just ask yourself the same question. And if it's too big a question to begin, so if I could be the hero of my own story, is too big a question to start with because you feel completely lost.
Yeah.
Then there are well, two other things in that over the last couple of years, especially in the beginning, but I still do it. It's what's the one thing I have to do to win the day? So I knew that, again, I'd start with if and then go for a walk. And then what was the one thing? I went back to a paper diary. What did I have to do to win the day? And literally in the beginning, it would be make sure you've eaten dinner. And I was not even the one cooking dinner. But then I could tick it off. So I'd won the day. And it's those one things every day that start to stack and they start to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you start to get momentum that you do start to feel that you are winning at life if you just tick off that one thing that you need to do.
Yeah.
Or something else that Gabriel and I used to do because life has been tough for a long time would be at the end of every day, typically around the dinner table, we'd just share what were the 3 wins of the day. So again, however bad the day had been or whatever had happened in the day, you're always ending on a high. And then if there's
Mm.
other people at the dinner table, they would get to join in as well. And when it's 3 things day after day, you have to start coming up with quite small stuff. Like, actually, the lady at the bus stop smiled at me. And you start to really realize all the really little things that are joyful that are occurring around you. So perhaps
Yeah.
try one of those in terms of, yeah, what are the 3 wins of your day? Because I think 3 was a good number in that you have to get to the little stuff. And then
Yeah.
or in the morning, what is it that you need to do? Just the one thing that wins
Yes.
you feel like you've won the day.
It's so true what you're saying, Kate, because we all are looking for that big win, the big
Yeah,
thing. And sometimes those come but sometimes they take some time. So if you can't be grateful and start to look for those little wins,
yeah,
your momentum, your energy, your inspiration is going to drop.
yeah. And it's I just kept having this feeling left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot,
Ah,
right foot. It doesn't matter how slow it is, it's just as long as you're stacking them, stacking them, stacking them, stacking them.
yeah, yeah. Well, I want everyone to know that we are going to have some information in the show notes. So you can find the books, you can reach out to Kate, whatever it is that you would like to do, but we will have information and links that you can do that. So, Kate, what is your hope for StoryQuest in the years ahead?
My hope for StoryQuest is that it starts to, and I think you're quite right in that it will empower not just children, but it will empower the parents too, but empower us all to be able to be the heroes of our own story, empower us all to be able to know we can get through the tough times and that we are not um, sort of just slaves to the system. We are not just the result of our circumstances. We have more um, power than we believe we have if we just own our own character. And I think that was something that was really key for me with Gabriel. Was in this situation I just knew I didn't have sport anymore to be able to, it's obviously a tool that I've used with him in the past to empower him and give him a sense of well done, can do, but without it all we had was stories, all we had was an hour a week over a screen. But I knew he had to self-determine who he wanted to be. The situation we're in is life defining, but I wanted to give him the best chance for it defining him in the most positive way. So again, it's probably all back to if. It's all back to the if you own your character, if you can look yourself in the mirror, you can get through some stuff.
Yes, yeah,
And fantasy fiction is a very, very safe way to process difficult emotions, communicate in about challenging circumstances with very, very little risk. And I've
yeah,
certainly seen that through our stories, the things that we've brought up in the fantasy fiction world that even if it was with me, I'm not sure we'd have talked about in reality. Um, but then you start to see this crossover, Mum, what does it mean that you trust me? Whoa, 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 Gabriel, you're 12. How are you asking me this? Okay, I'll answer it. And I don't believe he'd ever asked me that question if we hadn't already dealt with some quite meaty stuff in fantasy fiction.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's a hard thing that your family's been going through. But on the other side, like you're just like everything is so beautiful when you have your hour together. There's no fighting, there's no it's like excitement. Oh wow, okay, what are we going to write today? What are we going to do now? I think that he's going to carry that forever. I just
I,
love how you've taken this nasty situation and built something beautiful out of it. And for him and for yourself.
thank you.
And now look what's happening. Now look what's happening out of all of this.
I think there's a sort of another point to this is it's an hour a week that we have. Okay. And it dawned on me at some point, Gabriel's done martial arts since he was very little, and he probably spent an hour a week with his martial arts teacher. He will never forget his martial arts teacher. He had such a strong relationship with him. And I probably learnt to swim in an hour a week, as most of us do. And I can still remember my first swimming teacher. And so you start to realize that if you've got an hour and you're very intentional with that hour, you can do quite a lot. And
Yeah,
there is a yeah, there's very much an intentionality behind each of our hour. You know, it was this time, obviously it's not all sort of down to business, if you like. There's
yeah,
time for whatever we need to talk about. But there is we have got into sort of rhythm of where, yeah, there is an intentionality behind when we
yeah,
fit one call, right? We're going to look at pictures next call. Yeah, man, we're going to do pictures next call. So that means I
yeah,
have to prepare the pictures.
yes, yeah.
Um,
Well, it's yeah, we all have that hour.
yeah,
Let's not waste it.
yeah. I think that's again where and it's I've watched. I mean, he's 12 now, 12 and a half now, and there's times when I've called him that his friends have texted him or pinged him on the computer game or whatever. He tells them, "I'm speaking to my mum." So I think
Oh,
where people are feeling a loss of connection with their kids, if you're very, very intentional that you've got your hour on whenever it is, Sunday evening, Friday,
yeah,
whenever it is, if you get into a rhythm where you're very intentional that you've got an hour, it's at the dinner table, wherever it is,
yeah,
you've got this intentional window and you are intentional with that time that you're giving them, they will intentionally protect it. You know, the respect becomes mutual because that's certainly what I've seen in that. Yeah, he messages his friends back saying, "Sorry, I'm speaking to my mum."
yeah, yeah. Wow. Just thank you for sharing this. There's a lot of people, a lot of parents that are hurting in the world. And I hope that they are going to see this. And I hope that they're going to find some encouragement and maybe get their own creativity working. So, you know, what they can do during their time that they
Yeah,
get to spend with their children.
yeah. And if you just come in with that, you can't be wrong. You can't be
Yeah.
wrong. Play, and it's collaborative. I mean, there's
Yes.
times when oh, but there's a blue whale that goes into Tokyo Harbour, and of course, Grandad, when I tell him this, fusses over whether a blue whale fits into Tokyo Harbour. Don't care whether a blue whale fits into Tokyo Harbour. It's fantasy fiction. Oh,
Yes.
dodos haven't been deceased long enough, extinct long enough. Skeletons doesn't matter. We find
Yes.
a you've got to just remove all of the rules and make
Yeah.
it about playful connection and engagement and them feeling heard and respected and empowered.
Yes. And
Empowered.
empowered. Love that. Well, Kate, thank you again so much for being willing to be here. And everyone, as I said, we're going to have Kate's information in the show notes. So reach out, grab a book. Come on, people. Support what's happening over here and yeah, just show your support and your love. So we'll have all of that there for you. So once again, Kate, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your deeply personal but beautiful story. I just I love what you've done with it, and it's and I think that it's so important because it shows others that we can take our pain, our sadness, and still do have something wonderful come out of it. But as you said, we have to be intentional.
Just don't give up. I think that's from all those years as a physiotherapist. Once somebody quit, you're
Yeah.
lost. But if you
Yes.
don't quit, you will find a way. You will find a
Yes. Yeah. Perfect ending words. Thank you for that. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for being here for this episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.